Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Spacesuit Series. I'm so happy and grateful that you're here. As you all know, may or may not know, I travel the nation in this spacesuit. I'm grateful and honored to have the opportunity to lead groups and discussions and trainings and give speeches on the topic of cohesion and how we can better perfect the union. And when I think about human history as a total, and I think about what we haven't been able to get over as humankind, it's our inability to realize how much we are the same. It's how we keep falling victim to illusions of divisiveness. So this person's that color and that person's that color and all of this. And it's just like, who cares? What really matters is on the inside of that person. And on the inside, under our skin and under our bones, we truly are all the same. We're all just souls in spacesuits. So thank you for being here. We're so excited to have another conversation. And as we're all souls in spacesuits and we're called to live out this journey on Earth, our spacesuits, our bodies are what allow us to traverse this planet. That's how we live on Earth, right? But we also share this beautiful home called Earth. And it truly is our responsibility to rise and become better stewards of our natural resources. So I'm so excited to continue sharing that message and doing that through my love of conversation, of getting to know other souls. And today I have the opportunity to have one of the most brilliant souls and brilliant lights that I know.
You boost me up big.
Because it's so true. Like
Everybody get a friend like Ashley. She makes you feel great.
Get a friend like Christina. I just feel so lucky and grateful to be in your orbit. So I'm really excited for my audience to get to know you and to feel that light that those of us who are in your circle get to feel all the time. I'm really grateful for them to get to know you. So Christina, Wren, everyone.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to have you in our life, in our world. You've been such a huge part of our life here in Atlanta and our families' lives and creative lives. So we treasure knowing you.
Good stuff. Well, let's tell the audience a bit about you. You are a producer, you are an actor, you are a writer, a mom, and a wife. You do all the things. Let's tell the audience a bit about you.
I got two little kids, two little boys, so they take up a grand amount of my time, as they should. And my husband is a filmmaker, and he and I started working together, maybe 20 years ago.
Which is so cool.
I know, we were babies, and just young little creative types trying to make something happen, tell stories. So we have a production company called Two Kids with a Camera. And we do all sorts of branded content for various commercial and corporate clients, and then we make films and series and things like that. So we recently made a short that is playing at the Atlanta Underground Film Festival coming up. It's called Escape. So we're playing August 17th at the Limelight Theater here in Atlanta.
Be there. If
so
you're in Atlanta, we'll both be there.
Come hang. Come say hey.
For sure.
I recur in Will Trent now on ABC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that. Trying to write, trying to act, trying to...
Yes, and what do you do for WOC?
I am the Vice President of Women of Color Filmmakers, and so we are a nonprofit organization that aims to lift up women of color in the film industry. So we do all sorts of workshops, script reviews, screening series, et cetera, et cetera. It's a wonderful community. Our sort of huge flagship program is a lab that we... built a few years ago, and it's essentially free film school.
Oh my gosh.
So our president, Londi Maduro, and I dreamt this up, and we were recognizing a lot of women in our community just hadn't been able to go to film school and couldn't intern for free. A lot of the things that, people have to do in our business to get ahead. And so we wanted to create a space that really went hard in terms of giving people the skills to work in this business. A lot of the labs, even, it's sort of like a weekend of, a couple meetings and whatever, but it's a 6-month intensive program. We go from generating an original idea and developing that, script writing, into all aspects of filmmaking and production, through post-production and final delivery of a short film. We do a big screening in LA, and we have Hollywood mentors that come out and do
Wow.
one-on-one mentorship. Yeah,
This is amazing.
an amazing program. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
A lot of our women have gone on to do incredible things. One of our filmmakers went on to, fellowship with Netflix's Nalib program. We have women playing in all sorts of festivals, and they're, working in the film industry. And so really it's been a profoundly moving experience to see their development, and these voices are needed out in the world, and also
Yes.
our industry has sort of opened up and woken up to some extent and said, okay, yes, we need to have more diverse voices in the room, but then people can sort of make an excuse and be like, but if people aren't ready,
Right. And you're like, let's get them ready.
Let's get them ready.
I love that so much. I think when you're talking about having more voices and more voices being heard and more stories being told, we think about how we all exist in these different spacesuits. And because we exist in these different spacesuits, different stories come forth just because of our cultural experiences. So talk to me about how important it is for you as a storyteller to make sure that more stories from diverse people are told.
That's probably one of the most important things to me as a filmmaker. I know for myself as a viewer, when I was growing up, it was so rare, and still often is, but to see a reflection of myself. At first, there weren't really that many women on screen, and so you were either like the super hot lead or the like quirky topless friend, like that was, or the old sage who's in one scene. There were so many scripts when I was first auditioning that was pretty much what was available to us, and now we can see zombie films like The Last of Us, where it's like you've got this young heroine, you've got a million women who are just scientists or rebel leaders or surviving or whatever. Like, we don't have to just be one or two roles in a story. Like, and your role as a woman doesn't have to play into your job on screen. Like, you can just be the revolutionary leader, or you can just be, and your role of any gender,
And I think that's so ripe for the times we're living in. We're living in one of the most momentous times in history, and I truly know with every fiber of my being that there's something larger. There's a larger story being told through all of us that are alive right now. If you're alive right now, you're alive right now for a purpose and a reason, and there's a higher story that's called to emerge through you. And so when you think about just opening up the gates so people's stories can be told, I tell people, like, literally the tapestry of human history is incomplete if people aren't able to rise into what they feel called to. And so when you're talking about those different roles and realizing, wait, like, no matter who you are, you can do all of these things. And there's just so many parallels between that for me on screen and in real life. I'd love to talk about, like, preparing for a role and just your thoughts on when you are preparing for a role and you're stepping into something and getting to know a character. I feel like in life we play so many different roles, and there's some thought and some practice and some muscle that has to be built for that. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think bringing, humanity to a role versus, like, bringing it from the truth of one's experiences and from your imagination and such, versus trying to perform, like, what you think the expectation for the role is for me one of the bigger tasks when I'm prepping a role, is that I can often read something and first go, I think I see what they want based on things I've seen before, but then that's going to lead me to an inauthentic performance. So kind of backing up from that, even in when I was in acting school, I had to tell myself, don't be good, be real. Like, because the second I'm trying to, like, be good, it helps me a lot.
That's a good one.
It helps me a lot, yeah. And I think with writing too, like, just circling back to, I started rambling a little bit about the gender stuff, but as my career has unfolded and this industry has unfolded, it is like an onion where all of a sudden it's like, okay, certain people get recognized and certain other people get recognized and certain other people get recognized. And I hadn't realized fully what it felt like to be lacking seeing yourself represented on screen until I finally started to see it and felt this profoundly emotional thing.
Yes.
And so, like, one big one for me was the show Mo on Netflix.
Okay.
And so to see, like, the Arab American immigrant story played out, and I got to watch it with my dad, who, like, had the same car that his dad bought him when he first moved to the States, you know, and, like, all the family dynamics, and we're just cracking up, and I didn't get tattoos until my tata passed away, nor did my father, and then we both, like, got them at the same time. If you're a Middle Eastern person, you know that your tata, your grandma, nobody wants you to desecrate God's temple.
I understand.
So, you know, but I think, and we are lady parts now, coming from the UK, you know, has Middle Eastern, you know, British women, are not Arab American, they're Arab European women. But it's powerful to see, and to see, like, they can be funny, and they can be rock stars, and they can,
And I think it's so important, right? Because people throw around, you know, words like representation. And if you've never not seen yourself represented, you don't really have the words to describe the feeling. If you have lived a life where you've been able to see yourself represented, and that's great. But I think it's really important to capture that, and you captured it so well. Representation matters. Being able to see myself on screen, see someone that is in a spacesuit like mine on screen matters, because you said that there is a profound emotional connection. Something happens, something electrifying, something sets something off in the synapses of your brain and your nervous system that says, wait a minute, I can live my fullest and highest story too. And that's what we need every human being to do. Like, every person that is alive that's in a spacesuit, if you can just rise and heal and do what you have to do to be your highest and best, to me the world becomes a better place. And I think, you know, it's really important for people to understand that, like, you know, every soul needs certain things. It's like souls need hope, souls need freedom, and souls do need to be seen. A lot of phrases that are thrown around during this zeitgeist is, you know, I want to be seen and I want to be heard. Well, why is that? Your soul needs that. And so when you captured that, something happened to me emotionally when I could see myself. And no matter who you are, no matter what color your spacesuit is, no matter what the ability level of your spacesuit is, or the preference level of your space, whatever, all the silly stuff we divide ourselves over, everyone deserves to see themselves and be seen. And you captured that so beautifully. So thank you for that.
Totally. Thank you for, you know, what you do in trying to, like, elevate voices, you know, of various communities, but also the constant reminder of, like, we are souls with a purpose, and we're all here for a shared purpose. And I think that's really a powerful thing. And for me, you know, my background is storytelling, so as humans, we can look back at some of our, like, earliest, most unevolved ancestors. They were still telling stories, right?
They
and
were.
we find, like,
To the best of their abilities.
To the best of their abilities. And I think that, you know, stories are passed down culturally. There's oral traditions. There's, you know, all sorts of performances and stuff. And right now, the ways that we really access stories culturally are, like, movies, TV, books, the internet, you know. And so if you know, we're not seeing ourselves around the fire, there is a part of just this deeply human part of us that I think, like, you don't realize is turned off, or it's not, but, like,
it's
it
dormant,
needs to be
but,
alive.
oh my God.
Yeah.
And can you imagine, like, and that's what I'm saying, we can all remember a time when it's like, I wasn't represented, and then you start seeing it. When I took my daughter to see The Little Mermaid, the new one, with Halle Bailey, I cried.
I was gonna say, did you cry?
I did. Because she was so excited, and she wore her little, you know, we let her
Little
dress
mermaid
up.
outfit,
And my mom and my sisters met me there, and we did, like, a girls' day thing. My son was like, what is happening? And then my husband took him, you know, Darrell took him fishing. But either way, it just meant so much to me for her to see herself up there. And I just, like, the little girl in me was crying. And not that I cried when the original Mermaid came out. Just like every little girl, I watched it like normal, and it was cool. Like, I loved the story then, and I love it now. But it just, that profoundly emotional level, it hit again. And so we are growing up in a better world. I want to talk to you about the importance and your intentions and purpose with telling more Arab stories, and how those souls need to be seen differently.
So my dad is an immigrant from the Middle East, from Lebanon, moved here in the 70s. And so, I was raised with half my family, like, big holiday celebrations and, tons of food and whatever on the one side, And then my mom is from Iowa, very like, if you've seen my Big Fat Greek Wedding, that's my family.
Oh
like,
my gosh,
you've got
I
the
love
like
it
white,
so much.
middle America, like very quiet. We pass the cranberry sauce,
Okay.
and then just house full of people, food
So
everywhere,
you've
music.
got okay.
So that was my upbringing. And as a kid, you're just like, everyone has a Tata and a Grandma Rose. Like, this is just
in your head. That's
the
your
air
paradigm.
that I breathe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wasn't forced to like confront being Arab as anything other than just sort of like a little flavor until 9/11.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Yeah.
And
course.
so experience.
And what that does for children of Arab descent that are living in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, now we're 20 some years past that. And now like Arab American youth's identity is really tricky. You know, like one of my cousins who's a little younger than me, like grew up in Arizona and just was like, just tell people I'm Mexican. Like it's easier to just be Mexican than be,
But even sitting with that, him feeling safer to say another identity, that at that moment in itself,
Yeah.
and safer and even more comfortable. But,
Well, and the safety thing is one that I wrestle with because people don't look at me and immediately know what I am. And so I'm sometimes tempted to hide, because it is like, is someone gonna hurt me or my family or, lash out? There's, I'm a peaceful person.
you are the sweetest.
A dove and an olive branch.
You're just also just the sweetest person.
But yeah, so I think a big thing for me in the last decade really, because it took me some time to kind of process that identity, to first be able to articulate and say like I'm something other, like that. I almost needed permission to do that, but then I had to sit with like, okay, what does that mean, what am I, and like culture's happening at the same time, and my artistic voice was being developed at the same time. So I'm trying to think back. I feel like I'm trying to remember the order of things. I did a short film with a Palestinian musician. It may have been before we did Hipsters. So that was maybe the first thing I did that really, it was like in Arabic and but it's just a little love story in New York City. It's like a missed connections type thing, and they both have Khalil Gibran's book and see each other in a cafe, and then he spends the day trying to find her.
Okay.
And then Hipsters was a comedy series I made, and I was just like, it needs to be comedy, like laughter is healing and it brings us together, and often and I contradict myself in a way because Escape is this like hard-hitting drama, intense thing.
But you need both stories.
But you need both.
You need both stories. So so talk to me about after 9/11, you said was a turning point for you in identity. Why?
Well, I experienced the tragedy of 9/11 the same as like any other American, and I felt, very patriotic, very concerned about what happened. I was devastated. I was worried about all the things everyone was worried about in terms of like, are we gonna go to war? Do we have to send young people away? Like, it was just
scary.
It was super scary.
We were kids. Yeah. Darrell and I remember exactly what we were.
Yeah, I remember the exact moment totally. And then the next day, I went to school, and I had to do something, and I had to like pop into the office for something. And I was, like super good student, whatever. I used to help them sort papers and whatever in the office.
We're really the same person.
Like, we're super nerdy.
Yes,
Oh, yeah. So the school secretary, who knew and loved me, came out, and she was just railing against Arabs, and she didn't know who I was. And my friends all knew. It wasn't like anything I was hiding. My dad's kind of a big figure in our community, but she was like, "We need to send all these," she used a slur, "back to where they came from and bomb them all to hell."
In front of, and so you're...
To kids.
How
to
old
kids.
are you at this point?
17. I'm aging myself here. But yeah, I was in high school, and my friend, like my little best friend, was an Irish girl, you know, but she knew, and she just kind of grabbed my hand behind the counter, and I was so stunned. Like, I had no response whatsoever. I was just frozen. So that was the beginning, and then of course, like, we all know what happened next.
Culture as a whole and how things started to move.
Yeah, I didn't want my dad to. He had to change all his jokes. Like, he would make all these wild jokes before that. I was like, John Ashcroft will find you and you're gonna disappear. Like, please stop. You know. And so, and again, my dad is this peaceful person. He runs a nonprofit organization helping people in our community. Like, our whole family is. Bless him. He's an immigrant, and his whole life he's trying to make the community better here in the United States. But
and I just think that's so important because in America, like I always tell people, and I'm not the first person to say this, but America is a huge, like a big experiment. Like, let's throw a bunch of people that look different and worship differently and love differently. Let's throw them in a melting pot and tell them to like unite and figure it out. Like, so we're living in an experiment, people. Like it is. America is an experiment. And when you think about that assignment, like we live together, we work together, you know, with the interconnectedness of the internet and everything, we're running into each other's stories all the time. We're crossing paths with people all the time. And I am of the belief that you cross paths with people for a reason, and that you're in the room with people for a reason. And sometimes your path crosses with someone for 2 seconds in an elevator. You know, sometimes it's a lifetime. You know, somebody like Darrell, our paths crossed at 12. I had no clue that we'd be married, but obviously there was a cosmic assignment for our souls, you know? And when I think about that, like, part of the assignment of Americans and us all being in these different spaces tied to greater stories is being loving and compassionate of stories that are different from ours. So part of that assignment is, well, okay, yes, 9/11 happened, and it was terrible. I was in the 6th grade. I'll never forget it. I know where I was. I know what happened. It was scary. I had friends whose parents worked for Delta. I mean, I can draw that story down into my imagination very quickly. It's visceral. We can always remember that. We can all remember that. However, you were just a child at the time too. You know what I mean? And I think people have to use bifurcation in their brains from being like, okay, that happened there and those people were wrong. But I can't apply my feelings to that historical event and the people that did it to every single person that is of Arab descent, you know, or whatever it is. I mean, we could go to every culture and pick out things and say that.
Every single type of person. And I think that's what's really tricky, is there's a narrative in our country that likes to say, like, all these other groups have all these violent parts to them, but when it's violence over here, it's justified, or it's honorable, or it's whatever. And like,
you can find violence.
Every type of person's got somebody who does really effed up shit and somebody who's really loving, and some, you know, and like.
And that's why it's so important, and that's why just the memory device of, wait a minute, that's a soul in a spacesuit. There's a story in there. They've been through things. If you get to know that person as a soul, like, and their character, that's what we should care more about, not the outside, not what people look like what's on the inside of that person, like, and how much are we missing by dismissing people based off larger stories or larger events or color or preference or disability, whatever it is. How much are we missing? How much are we missing from the tapestry of human history of doing that? So I think what I love about your purpose to tell more Arab stories and Arab American stories is that that needs, those feelings, those emotions, those stories need to come to the forefront so people can see those souls and hear those stories and humanize and like, man, that is a soul too, that she's just a person. You know what I mean? And they're living the American story. They're living through their version of the American lens, just like I am.
Yeah. And that for me, like, I can't write the story of, I mean, I could with a lot of research and whatever, you know, but the stories that I write are specifically Arab American, right? And like, both with Hicksters and Swishy, the thing that I'm writing now, they're of mixed Arab American characters, because that's the world that I know,
Swishy.
you know.
Love
Thank
Swishy.
you.
Yes.
I'm really excited about
I'm
Swishy.
excited about Swishy. Yes.
Yeah, and I think like a big part of that for me is wanting to for people to see like inside the family dynamics there, you know, the relationship with so she's a 14-year-old kid who's you know, daughter of an immigrant, lives with her grandma and her dad and her,
yeah.
and so, but she's, you know, trying to figure out her life in high school and like how do you juggle the familial stuff and the trying to figure out just how to not be a loser and like how to play basketball and you got a crush on a boy and what do you do about that? Like it's just her. It's a very kind of coming of age story.
It is. That everyone has, right? Everyone has a coming of age story, and I think immigrant stories are so important because it's just like, no, these are kids, right? But they're balancing. Sometimes there's a language barrier. Sometimes, you know, the parents are here and they're making a better life and they're figuring things out, but maybe the kid is translating for the parent. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different levels of like, and how children are growing up. Like, okay, I got to survive at school. Like, I got to figure this thing out at school, but I got to go home. I got to tell my parents. Like, that's a lot. And the assignment on that soul, really, to navigate life in that way. Yeah.
It is. It's fun, and I'm really excited about the basketball part. So it's Swishy is really a story of this 14-year-old girl who loves basketball, is dying to play. In her neighborhood public high school's team. They've been awesome, and she hates the private school she's like been on scholarship at. She just, the girls are mean.
They're so mean
she
to
can't,
her.
It's very much inspired by my life. This is therapy for me, so
it's a little cathartic.
It's a little cathartic. And she finally convinces her family that, you know, to let her go to this public high school. She's smart and she kind of puts a budget together that will help the family out.
Budget if I'm not in private school.
And it's convincing. And so she starts at the public school. She's so ready to play with this coach and finds out the coach has left for the private school that she had gone to for a better, you know, pay bump. And her nerdy English teacher who played basketball in middle school is now inheriting the low budget position. So it's like I've been saying it's you know, a little ladybird, you know, meets Creed, toss a little Mighty Ducks in there, but she helps her dad do construction work with his nonprofit.
And she's good at it.
And she's good at it. She's really good at it. So she's doing construction with her dad within the community, and you get to see inside some of the homes of people in their community, and get to know those characters there. She plays basketball, and she is then just navigating all the social dynamics.
I love it too. So I have the privilege and the honor of being close to you and you trusting me to read the script. And I know we don't always get to do that with projects, but I think one of the really cool things about that is kind of what we've been saying. Like, get to know the character person, like get to character the person, get to know like the script that's running in that person's mind, like what's behind, you know, the outside. And I mean, like, I know it was a story about an Arab American, but that is not what I was thinking about when I was reading the script. Like, I had fallen in love with Izzy. You know what I mean? And I feel like if we could all do that, like, wait, like, lean back. Like, what's this person really saying? What's this soul really going through? What's their story? So you told me a story a couple of days ago when we were at breakfast. And it has resonated with me on a very deep level. I went home and told Darrell the story, and I want you to tell it because of the way you tell it. Talk to me about ice cream.
Oh, yeah, this is a big one. This is Eve Ensler's story from her play The Good Body, which I highly recommend. Eve Ensler in general, who goes by V now.
Okay.
So V wrote this play called The Good Body. It's a series of monologues based on interviews that she did with real women. And, a lot of it's around body image, aging, relationship to food, all these different things that she was sort of wrestling with at the time, and speaks with all these different types of people about it. But there's one piece in it that has always really stuck with me in a very profound way, and quite frankly, I don't remember any of the rest of them, but this one is so profound. I think about it every time I eat ice cream. So she was in Afghanistan, and was, had a tour guide who had basically said you wanted to kind of meet some Afghani women. You can't tell anyone, like, this is very secret and it's dangerous, but, like, come and I can introduce you to some women. So there was a restaurant that was really taking a big risk. This is, under the Taliban, and they kind of, like, I guess, put sheets up in the windows or whatever. Like, it was very secret, and these women would come in and,
full dress and
oh yeah, and eat vanilla ice cream in silence. And so they, would in secret, and it was a sort of risking their safety, risking their lives to have this experience of pleasure. And that has just always been very profound to me. For so many reasons that I don't know how to sum up. I think partly our needs as humans for pleasure, and our ability or innovation or something survival tactic within us, like, that these women, could have the courage to do something like that,
And go ahead. Yeah.
No, you go ahead.
Or I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I mean, when you told me that story, I was like, how I'm always saying souls need things. Souls need freedom, souls need hope, but souls need joy. And how we can construct societies in ways in which we've done so throughout human history, in ways that take away the most fundamental things that a soul needs. And one of those things is joy. So the more you constrict down on people's stories, like, you're taking joy. And in that particular example, women were willing to risk their lives. I'm sure they had children at home. I'm sure they, all kind of things. And they were just like, if I can just go get a little bit of pleasure, just get a little bit of joy, so that I can go back and do what I have to do, is so huge. And it really makes you think about your own paradigm, and how there happens to be an ice cream shop across the street. If you and I want to walk out here right now freely and openly and go get some ice cream, we can. And until those things are taken from you, you don't understand how much we have to be grateful for in this country, and how really it is our responsibility to take care of a country paradigm that's founded on freedom. That all men are created equal. That's literally in the preamble to the Constitution. And I am sure, what I know for sure, thank you, Oprah, for that phrase, is that part of what we're supposed to learn in the zeitgeist is we're supposed to get a little closer to that creed. The call of that creed, for us to finally, like, the humans that are alive right now, we are capable of rising to the fact that, like, that person is equal to me. That soul matters just as much as I do. And they need love and peace and joy and freedom just like I do. So I'm not going to do anything, and I'm not going to participate in anything. I'm not going to use any language. I'm not going to do anything that would constrict anybody else's story, because I know how much it means for my story to come forth. And man, what kind of world would we create if people could think like that? Like, and that's the thing, like, one of my favorite things to think about just from my days in law school is to literally think about, because we had to obviously study the legal system and precedent, very deeply. And I would step back as we had to study old cases and look back from the founding of our country and look back through everything. And one day it hit me when I was in school. I said, oh my God, I'm literally studying the how human consciousness, how collective consciousness has progressed through the American lens. Like, so we have this country that's founded on freedom. Well, that was a huge idea for the world at the time. People forget that the United States of America is very young. We're not even 250 years old. Other countries around the world are thousands of years old. And see, people came here with this idea of freedom. And a lot of the times when ideas are formed, whether it's art or countries or whatever it is, the idea is normally above the thought ability of the people at the time. So those thoughts were above them at the time. It was an idea, it was an idealistic, let's do this. Well, the people at the time weren't ready for that, as we've seen through the course of American history. But what we've seen as collective consciousness, as America has progressed, is people rise up and say, wait a minute, this freedom is promised to me too. Whether I'm a woman, whether I'm black, whether I'm whatever, and you can trace that through American legislation. You can trace it where it was darker, where people were literally saying, oh, people that look like this aren't even human. And that sounds crazy in 2024. But that was law.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people, you know, worked based off that law and moved and had societies around those thoughts. And I think if we can just continue to examine ourselves, which you can't not do in today's world, like we're living in a world where you have to look at yourself. If we can continue to examine ourselves and heal ourselves, that is how we make a better world. As you heal yourself, you do indeed heal this world. And I just think that, you know, our kids really will grow up in a different world if we keep going in the way that we are. Talk to me about your hopes for the world, and your hopes and dreams through storytelling.
I mean, my hopes for the world, it's probably basic and Pollyanna, but it is just that everyone is safe and everyone has what they need and everyone is loved. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be great?
I know. And when you boil it down, it's like that's all any soul
Yeah.
wants. And that's really all any soul needs. And like, I remember I was having a conversation shortly after the pandemic. It was like post George Floyd, and someone that I went to middle school with sent me a DM. And he said, I owe you an apology. And I'm like, first of all, I haven't heard from this person since we were literally 12, 13, maybe 14. No, 12, 13. He said, I owe you an apology. He was like, now that I'm an adult, I've realized that I said some really cruel and racist things to you when I was a child. And I want you to know that I didn't even know what I was saying. He was like, I learned those things. And I cried when I read the Darrell numbers. I showed him the message, and I just cried because I was more so grateful that he, as a soul, was having that moment of healing. And because, you know, we all have to heal our inner child. No one escapes that. Like, you have to go back and figure those things out. But, and it was so funny because when he sent me that DM, after he sent it to me, I read it, I remembered, but it wasn't something I remembered. It just wasn't. And things were so different then. It was just like, that's what people did. Yeah, like, you know, you kind of get used to it as a person of color. You're like, oh, okay, it's just a regular day. Like, you know, and I just am very sure that, you know, there's just not a mistake that if you're alive right now, you're alive for such a time as this. Like, you're alive for a purpose and a reason, and your soul is on its own curriculum. Like, every soul is here for its own curriculum, and no matter what lens you're living through, what spacesuit you're living in, there's something there for you. And we're all supposed to grow closer to love. And in that moment when he sent me that message, I said, oh my God, like, I'm so grateful. Like, his soul is getting closer to love, and we just shared a moment for that to happen. And of course, you know, I just thanked him and sent him, you know, love and well wishes. But when I think about just life as a whole, and then we started talking a little bit, and we were talking about like differences and stuff, and I was like, you know, we all really want the same things. Like, we want to grow old, we want to, he was like, you're right. And I think if we really boil it down, which is my hope, through all of the work that Darrell and I do and through this conversation series, that we can boil it down and really see each other for who we are, and just remember your soul needs the same thing as the other soul, and just remember not to participate in or support or anything. Just don't be a part of constricting anyone else's story, anyone else's soul. And I just know the world will be a better place. And then we can start focusing on the things that really matter, like taking care of our planet. Because no, we're not going to have any place to live out our stories if we don't take care of planet Earth. So I'm so grateful for you all joining us today, and just beyond happy and grateful for my dear friend for sharing this moment in time with me, for sharing our lives, getting to raise our children together, and the relationship our husbands have. Like, I'm just grateful to know you, seriously.
I'm so grateful to know you. I really appreciate you having me on, and you are such a beautiful soul, and your energy is needed in the world. And I think so often what we focus on, if we're sitting in fear and anger, and I've been there, and it's hard to climb your way out of. It takes work, it takes patience, it takes focus, and your energy is like, you got to be reminded you can be hopeful, that joy is an act of resistance, right? Like, that you can work towards this and you can find it, and that can be infectious, and that can really, that stuff can change. Like, if you change hearts, you change the world.
That's it. If you change hearts, you change the world. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you for joining us.